Fantastic. Okay, so I'm aware of time and I really want to cover off a few more bits in here. So pushing on through, so you know, we've sort of worked through the formula of setting up a business, and then obviously business planning is just so key. And certainly in my business at the moment, there's a whole a few things that are going on, and there's definitely a lot of business planning. And in fairness, each different business requires a different view, I suppose, a different path to be taken in that business planning. So yeah, can you give us sort of any thoughts to people on how they might do business planning, because I feel that sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming. It's two huge words, isn't it? Business planning. I mean, you couldn't be much more vague. So is there any way you can sort of help us you know,
yes,
sort of filter that down?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to kind of, I have a very simple mindset. Now that may sound weird, but I like to keep things simple. And I have looking at people in the audience, they might get a bit bored of this, but I've mentioned this before. I have a very simple analogy that I use when it comes to business planning, but then we back it up with some stuff that I'll give you a few pointers on where to look for these at the end of it. So for me, I use a sailing analogy. Okay, if you're going to go somewhere, whether that be across a pond or to the other side of the world or across the Atlantic Ocean, you need to have a destination, right, or a location of where you're going to end up. Yeah, and part of that is, you know, could be then related to a business. So what do you want to do in 10 years' time? I always use a 10-year plan. So where do you want to be in 10 years and what is that destination? So similar sort of thing. Now, if you're going to go on that journey, then you have to have the right, firstly, so if you're going to go across a pond, you're going to use a small boat, right, with maybe a couple of paddles on it. If you're going to go across the Atlantic Ocean, you're going to need something a bit more substantial than that. So you start with your boat, then you have to have a team of people to run that boat, so the captain. We all know that anything within business is never a straight line. And it's the same with a sailing boat. You set sail, you go off course, somebody has to bring you back on course to get you to where you want to be, right? Because the winds change, the storms change, the sea might be in a slightly different way, so on and so forth. So what kind of things do you need to do with that journey to make sure that you're going to get there? Well, one, you have to provide it with the right team and a leader to get you back on track or whatever. You have to store it with the right fuel. You have to put the right food in it to get you across. And this all relates back to your 10-year plan. So when we're 10-year planning, we put a stake in the ground, right? This is where we want to be in 10 years. We then revert that back to 5 years, 3 years, and then we do a 1-year plan. The 10-year is very vague. So for me, it's sell my business for £100 million in 10 years. Okay, that's my 10-year plan. 5 years, it's a little less vague. 3 years, a bit more detail. 1 year, lots of detail. Where are we going to buy our properties? What type of people are we going to put in them? What's our budget every month? How much do we need to make every month in revenue to get to that? How many properties do we need? What type of properties do we need? What's the criteria of property that we need? It's all very detailed. Okay. And I think that kind of covers that side of things. Now, what we also back that up with is a little bit more structure. So if you read a book called Traction by Gino Wickman, so the entrepreneurial operating system, is what we kind of back that up with, and we use that the detail within that to break down the 10-year, 5-year, 3-year, 1-year plans to make sure that we manage the business in a certain way to get to those goals.
Very good. Yeah, I like that a lot. And I love, for me, I think you and I definitely follow the same path. And for me, I learned it through Bob Proctor, huge fan. Obviously, he's not with us anymore. But, you know, we tend to go, don't we, for these, either a goal where we've done it before. Well, that's not a goal, is it? Or we then go for a goal where we think, if I did this and if I do this and if I do this, then I'll be able to get that. So that's kind of like you said, your yearly goal. You can work back from it, and this is where we're going to go. But what we need to really grow and to become different human beings and to change the world, whether it's the world or our world or, you know, whatever world we want to be in, that's having a goal where we have no idea how we're going to get there. And I think that's absolutely, you know, tremendous. And it's completely changed my life and where I'm going to and the world that I live in, because I have to be thinking about things in a totally different way and being more open and being more gutsy and talking to people that I would never talk to. But because you suddenly have a totally different goal and a totally different way forward, you've basically got to become the person you want to become. Because otherwise you just remain that person, you remain the same person. And unless you're growing inherently, like anything in nature, it is dying. So it is all about growth. So I love that you know, you've got this huge big goal, which I know you do, because, you know, I follow you. But I think, yeah, that's absolutely tremendous. So just to kind of draw this discussion sort of all together, obviously there's so many parts of running a business and we haven't even touched on hardly any of them. But you did talk initially about really, you know, loving the sales and loving the building relationships and really having this sort of people development as well. So as far as, you know, going back to people wanting to build their SA business and how they might look at doing that, where do you feel, you know, most people will start off with one person, won't they? Themselves. I mean, I did that. My very first one, I did everything. It was horrific. I'm rubbish at cleaning. I'm rubbish at ironing. I'm no good at a lot of those things, but I could not wait. It was a huge motivator to get second and third so that the business could then pay for all those other things. So, you know, as far as looking at having a team, where do you advise people to kind of look at that? Would you, I mean, I know we spoke about having you know, you spoke about your sailing model, but it can also be quite scary thinking about having a team of people.
Yeah, great question again. So business is all about people, right? So it's all about, you can have the best software, you can have the best systems in place, you can have the best processes in place, but if you haven't got the right people in place to use those systems, procedures and processes, then what have you got? Well, you've got nothing, basically. So in terms of getting the right people on board, there's a number of different ways we do this. In the earlier days, not in the earlier days, I'd use a slightly different dynamic tool that I'd use now, but I use I forgot what it's called. The contribution compass. So I use a piece of kit now, which is like wealth. You've heard of wealth dynamics and things like that, which are more well known. But I use one called the contribution compass. So when we're looking to build our team and the different people that are within our team, they all have to fit within as much as we possibly can.
Who does that one, by the way, the contribution compass? Is it?
Well, I get that from Julie Hogbin. But
okay.
it originates from Australia, I think. But Julie Hogbin is the person in this country that I use to do that. She was part of she has been part of We Talk Property in the past. Yeah. So look her up on there maybe. But the contribution compass helps you. Pigeonhole's the wrong word, but it kind of helps you pick out the right people that are going to come and work with you at certain levels of your business. So, for example, you don't want two of me in a particular role within the business, because we would just then, visionary salespeople, lots of ideas, but definitely need somebody to sit there and put the lead on me and pull me back sometimes and say, well, hang on a minute, Dave, what about this, and this in the background? Oh, forget about that. We're going to go do serviced accommodation on Mars next year, that sort of stuff. you definitely need somebody that's the opposite of you, that brings you back down to earth, a bit more of a detail person that looks at the insight and the numbers. Or what you'd probably call an integrator in the business. If you've read some of Gino Wickman's books, Rocket Fuel, your visionary and your integrator. That's the type of thing I'm talking about. But you can do that by using things like the contribution compass to help you build your team. And again, building those relationships once you've got your team and giving people the right tools to succeed is massive.